1 week before our wedding, I found out my fiancé was secretly married and never divorced. I'm a 30-year-old woman, and until a week ago, I thought I was about to marry the love of my life. Ethan and I had been together for 3 years. He was charming, attentive, and always made me feel like I was the center of his world. Our relationship wasn't perfect, no relationship is, but I truly believed he was my soulmate. We planned a beautiful ceremony. My dress was hanging in my closet, the venue was booked, the final payments were made. My friends and family were flying in from across the country. Every detail had been agonized over, from the seating chart to the floral arrangements. I was ready to walk down that aisle and start forever with him. Then, out of nowhere, forever cracked into pieces. It started with a phone call. A woman's voice, calm but firm. "Hi. I think you should know that Ethan is still married." To me. At first, I thought it was some cruel prank. I laughed bitterly and said, "Nice try." But the woman didn't falter. She gave me her name, Sarah, and said she had been Ethan's wife for 5 years. They were separated, yes, but never legally divorced. I hung up on her, my hands trembling. My first instinct was denial. No. Impossible. Ethan wasn't that kind of man. He was mine. He loved me. We were getting married in 7 days. But when I confronted him that night, his silence told me everything. He didn't deny it. He didn't even look surprised. He just dropped his head into his hands and whispered, "I was going to tell you, after the wedding." After the wedding. That was the moment my heart broke, because I realized my fiancé wasn't the man I thought I knew, and suddenly, the dress in my closet didn't look like a dream anymore. It looked like a coffin. When Ethan confessed, his voice cracked like he was the victim. He didn't even deny it, just mumbled, "I was going to tell you after the wedding." I felt like my whole body had turned to ice. But instead of screaming, I just sat there in silence, my mind spinning back through the past 3 years, replaying everything with new eyes. Because the truth is, there had been signs. I just didn't want to see them. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party. Ethan was magnetic, charming without trying, the kind of man who looked at you like you were the only person in the room. He asked for my number that night, and by the end of the week, we had gone on 3 dates. He moved fast, but I liked it. After years of half-hearted dating apps and men who ghosted after 2 weeks, Ethan felt like someone who actually knew what he wanted. But looking back, maybe he was just good at pretending. I remember early on, he always deflected questions about his past. I'd ask about his college years, his old relationships, his family. He'd answer lightly, with jokes, or he'd pivot the conversation back to me. At the time, I thought it was sweet, that he wanted to focus on us. Now, I realize it was calculated. Then there were the weekends he disappeared. Twice in our first year together, he said he had to help a cousin with personal issues and didn't answer his phone for 2 days. When I teased him about being bad at texting, he smiled and said, "I like being present when I'm with people." I swallowed that explanation, because he came back with flowers and kisses and made me feel silly for doubting him. There was also the mail. Once, I accidentally opened an envelope addressed to him from the county clerk. It looked official. When I asked about it, he snatched it away and said it was boring tax stuff. I didn't press, because I didn't want to seem controlling. Now I wonder if that letter had his marriage license inside. But the biggest red flag was his reluctance about our wedding. When we got engaged last year, I was ecstatic. He cried when he proposed, told me I was his fresh start. But when it came time to plan, he dragged his feet. I picked the venue, I organized the guest list, I even paid deposits from my own savings. Every time I tried to talk details, he said, "I just want to focus on us, not the spectacle." I told myself he wasn't the planning type. But maybe he was stalling because he knew he was living a lie. Now, with Sarah's phone call echoing in my head, every memory feels poisoned. I finally asked him, through clenched teeth, "Why? Why didn't you just tell me you were married?" He rubbed his face like he was exhausted. Because I didn't think it mattered. Sarah and we're over. We've been over for years. But the paperwork, the lawyers, it was messy. I didn't want to drag that into what we had. I didn't want to lose you. The twisted part? He said it like he was protecting me. Like lying about still being married was some kind of noble sacrifice. I laughed bitterly. You didn't want to lose me? You think I wouldn't have found out? You thought you could stand at that altar, put a ring on my finger, and I'd never know you were already someone else's husband? He winced. I was going to fix it. After the wedding, I'd file the papers. It would have been fine. Fine. That word made my stomach turn, because what he was really saying was this: he had planned to marry me while still married to another woman, and only then bothered to make it legal. My wedding day, the one I'd dreamed about since I was a little girl, would have been built on fraud. I looked at him then and realized something terrifying. If Sarah hadn't called me, if she hadn't warned me, I would have walked down that aisle blind. I would have kissed a man who was already bound to someone else. And the question I couldn't stop asking myself was, did he really love me at all? Or was I just his convenient fresh start while he kept one foot in another life? After that night, I couldn't look at Ethan without feeling sick. His excuses, his half-apologies, his "it would have been fine" all rang hollow. The man I was supposed to marry in 7 days wasn't who I thought he was, and the worst part? He seemed more worried about me finding out than about what he'd actually done. But Sarah's voice lingered in my head. Calm. Steady. Not hysterical, not vindictive. Just a woman stating a fact: Ethan is still married. To me. I had to hear more. I had to know what the hell kind of marriage Ethan had been hiding all this time. So, I called her back. When she answered, I braced myself for anger or hostility. Instead, she just sighed, like she had been waiting for this. I thought you might call. We agreed to meet at a cafe downtown the next day. I barely slept, my mind whirling with every scenario. What if she was lying? What if she was exaggerating? What if Ethan had painted her as crazy, the way men often do when they want to erase their past? But when I saw her sitting there, composed, tired eyes, manila folder on the table, I knew instantly she wasn't lying. Here, she said without preamble, sliding the folder toward me. Inside were copies of their marriage license, joint tax returns from 2 years ago, even photos from their wedding day. There they were, Ethan in a tux, smiling like he'd won the lottery. Sarah in white, glowing. His arm around her like she was the love of his life. My stomach lurched. Those were the same eyes, the same smile, the same look he'd given me when he proposed. I'm not showing you this to hurt you, Sarah said quietly. But you deserve to know the truth. He's a liar. And he doesn't change. I gripped the papers, my hands shaking. So, what happened? Why are you two still legally married? She leaned back, her expression bitter. Because Ethan doesn't finish what he starts. At first, things were perfect. He swept me off my feet, just like I'm sure he did with you. But underneath, he was selfish. He wanted admiration, attention, control. And when he got bored, he started disappearing, late nights, weekends away. I asked about divorce, and he always had an excuse. Too busy, too expensive, not the right time. But he never filed. And eventually, I stopped begging. My throat tightened. And now he's with me. She nodded. And when he's done with you, there'll be someone else. He doesn't know how to live without a backup plan. That's why he still has me on paper, because ending it officially would mean burning a bridge. And Ethan never burns bridges. He just builds new ones while the old ones rot. Her words sliced through me. Because they made sense. Too much sense. Suddenly, all of Ethan's quirks, the secrecy, the evasions, the way he deflected questions about his past, weren't quirks at all. They were strategies. Survival tactics for a man juggling multiple lives. I asked the question I'd been dreading: does he still see you? Sarah's eyes dropped. For a moment, I thought she wouldn't answer. Then she whispered, until about a year ago, yes. He'd come around, say he wanted to check on me, sleep with me, then vanish again. Eventually, I stopped answering his calls. But legally? He's still my husband. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe. A year ago. That meant Ethan had been sleeping with Sarah while he was already engaged to me. The room spun. My wedding dress flashed in my mind, the fittings, the flowers, the seating charts. Every ounce of excitement I'd poured into building a future with him turned to ash in my throat. Sarah reached across the table, her voice gentler now. Listen, I'm not your enemy. I've been where you are. I know how charming he can be, how convincing. But he's not going to change. You need to protect yourself before he destroys you like he destroyed me. I stared at her, blinking back tears. Because for the first time since Sarah called me, I realized this wasn't just about a wedding gone wrong. This was about my entire life. If I married Ethan, I wouldn't just be his wife, I'd be his next victim. Leaving that cafe felt like stepping out of one life and into another. I clutched the folder Sarah had given me so tightly my knuckles turned white. People on the street probably thought I was just another woman carrying paperwork. They couldn't see that I was carrying the coffin of my future. When I got home, Ethan was waiting for me in the living room, pretending like nothing was wrong. He had ordered takeout, set the table, poured wine, like a man planning a quiet evening with his fiancé. When he saw my face, his smile faltered. "What's that?" he asked, nodding at the folder. I dropped it on the table with a thud. The marriage license slid out. His face drained of color. "I met Sarah," I said flatly. His jaw clenched. "Why would you?" "Because she called me," I snapped. "Because you weren't man enough to tell me yourself. Because 1 week before our wedding, I had to find out from your wife that you're still legally married." He rubbed his forehead, exhaling like I was the unreasonable one. "It's not what you think." "Oh really?" I spat, shoving the photos toward him. "Because this looks like a wedding. This looks like tax returns. This looks like a man living 2 lives." His voice hardened. "We've been separated for years. She doesn't matter anymore." "Doesn't matter?" My voice cracked. "You were still sleeping with her a year ago. While you were engaged to me." He froze. That tiny pause told me everything. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "You're disgusting." Ethan finally snapped, his mask slipping. His voice rose, sharp and defensive. "You don't understand. Sarah was part of my past. You're my future. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd overreact." I stared at him, stunned. "Overreact? You let me plan an entire wedding while you were still married. You lied every single day for 3 years. You made me think I was building a future with you, and the whole time you were hiding a wife in the background. And you think I'm overreacting?" He slammed his fist on the table, making the glasses shake. "I was going to fix it. After the wedding, I would have filed the papers. What difference does it make? You'd still be my wife." My chest tightened. "No, Ethan. I wouldn't have been your wife. I would have been your mistress, dressed in white, paraded in front of my family while you were still legally tied to another woman." For the first time, he looked rattled. But then his expression turned cold. "If you walk away now, you'll look insane. Everyone's coming to the wedding. You'll humiliate yourself. You'll humiliate your family. Are you really going to throw away everything we built?" That was the moment my love for him turned to ash. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't even scared of losing me. He was scared of losing face. I picked up the folder and walked to the door. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. "I'm not the one who should be humiliated, Ethan. That's all on you." That night, I told my parents everything. We sat around the dining table, the documents spread out like evidence in a trial. My mom covered her mouth with her hand, tears spilling down her cheeks. My dad's face turned red, his fists clenching. "That bastard," he growled. I knew something was off about him. Too smooth, too careful. I should have said something sooner. Mom shook her head. Honey, you couldn't have known. He lied to all of us. When I told them the wedding was off, Mom burst into sobs of relief. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. Dad stood, storming toward the door, muttering about paying Ethan a visit. I had to beg him to stay. I don't need revenge, I whispered. I just need to be free of him. But the fallout wasn't just between Ethan and me. Word spread quickly through friends and relatives. My phone buzzed nonstop, texts, calls, voicemails. Some were supportive, "You're so strong." Others were cruel, "Cold feet is one thing, but canceling a wedding a week before?" People flew out for this. I didn't care. Let them judge. I'd rather be called a runaway bride than a bigamist's pawn. But Ethan wasn't done. The next morning, I woke up to a dozen messages from him. Long, rambling paragraphs about how sorry he was, how Sarah meant nothing, how we could still get married and fix it all after. And the last message sent a chill down my spine: "If you cancel this wedding, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Don't throw us away over a piece of paper." It wasn't an apology. It was a threat. The morning after I told my parents, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Ethan's name lit up the screen over and over: calls, voicemails, endless texts. At first, I ignored them. Then curiosity got the better of me. The first voicemail was Ethan sobbing. "I made a mistake, baby. Please, don't throw away what we have. Sarah means nothing, she always meant nothing. You're the one I love. You're my future." The second voicemail was angrier. "You're being dramatic. This doesn't change anything. People get married, people separate, it happens. It's just paperwork. You're going to humiliate both of us if you cancel now." By the third voicemail, his tone had turned chilling. "If you do this, you'll regret it. Don't embarrass me. Don't embarrass yourself. We can fix it, but only if you stop acting like a child." My hand shook as I listened. These weren't the words of a man in love. They were the words of someone desperate to protect his image. Canceling the wedding was a nightmare. I called the venue first. The coordinator's cheerful voice died when I explained. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. But the deposit. Keep it," I snapped. "I don't care." Then the florist. The DJ. The photographer. Each call was the same, sympathy laced with awkwardness. I could hear the gossip forming in their voices: the bride who called it off a week before. And then there were the guests. My bridesmaids, stunned. My extended family, whispering. My aunt left a voicemail saying, "Sweetheart, I know you're upset, but maybe this isn't worth throwing your whole future away. Men make mistakes." I wanted to scream, "This isn't a mistake. This is fraud." By Wednesday, half the guest list knew. Some were supportive, texts like, "Proud of you for being strong." Others were brutal, "People already bought plane tickets. Couldn't you just wait until after the wedding? You're overreacting, he's a good guy." That was the hardest part. Not the cancellations, not the whispers. The hardest part was realizing how many people thought I should just swallow the lie and go through with it, for appearances. But then Sarah called again. Her voice was steady, almost sisterly. "I heard from Ethan. He's spiraling. I don't know what he's told you, but please, don't believe a word of it. He's terrified of losing face. That's all this is to him." I hesitated. "Why are you warning me? You don't owe me anything." She sighed. "Because I wish someone had warned me before I married him. He pulled the same stunts with me. The begging, the crying, the threats. It never stops. You're lucky you found out now. You still have a chance to walk away." Her words steadied me. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt clarity. So I posted it. On Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. A single statement: the wedding is cancelled. I discovered that Ethan is still legally married to another woman. I will not marry a liar. Thank you for respecting my privacy. The fallout was immediate. My phone blew up again. Some friends were horrified. Others sent private messages confessing they'd always had a weird feeling about Ethan. Even a few of his groomsmen quietly texted me, "Good for you. He's not who you think he is." And then Ethan showed up at my door. He was pale, frantic, pounding so hard I thought he'd break it down. "Open the door," he shouted. "We need to talk." My dad stepped into the hallway. He'd been staying with me since everything blew up. His voice was calm but firm. "You should leave, Ethan." Ethan's eyes darted between us, wild. "You're making a mistake." "She's making a mistake." "Dad, tell her." "She's not your bride," my dad snapped. "Go home to your wife." The word landed like a gunshot. Ethan froze, his face twisting, then stormed off down the hall. I collapsed into a chair, shaking, my dad's hand on my shoulder. But as much as I wanted to breathe, I knew it wasn't over. Because Ethan wasn't the type to let go. He was the type to cling until there was nothing left to grab. And with 3 days still left until the would-be wedding date, I had no idea how far he'd go. The days leading up to the would-be wedding felt surreal. My apartment looked like a graveyard of plans, boxed decorations stacked by the door, my wedding dress zipped tight in its garment bag, the RSVP cards still pinned to the fridge like mocking reminders of what could have been. Every time I walked past that dress, I wanted to tear it apart with my bare hands. Friday night, the night before the original ceremony, I barely slept. My phone buzzed with texts from guests who hadn't checked social media and were only now finding out, "Wait, what's happening? Tell me this is a joke. Do we still show up to the venue?" By Saturday morning, what should have been my wedding day, I felt hollow. Mom and Dad insisted on staying by my side, cooking breakfast, trying to fill the silence with small talk. But my heart pounded with dread. Because I knew Ethan wasn't finished. He couldn't be. At noon, I got my answer. The doorbell rang. Dad went rigid, Mom's fork clattered onto her plate. I knew it was him before I even looked. I opened the door just enough to see Ethan standing there in his tuxedo. My tuxedoed groom, on the day of the wedding that no longer existed. His eyes were wild, his hair slicked back like he'd been crying and sweating all morning. In his hands, a bouquet of roses. Behind him, 2 of his groomsmen, looking pale and uncomfortable. "Put the dress on," he said, his voice breaking. "We can still do this. No one has to know. We'll have our own ceremony, just you and me. We can fix it later." My knees nearly buckled. "Are you insane?" His voice rose, desperate. "I love you. I chose you. Sarah doesn't matter, she never mattered. This is about us. Don't throw it all away because of a technicality." A technicality, that's what he called his wife. Dad stepped forward, his voice booming, "Get the hell out of here, Ethan. You're not welcome." Ethan ignored him, his eyes locked on me. "If you walk away, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. You'll never find someone who loves you the way I do." I finally snapped. My voice shook, but it was steady enough. "Ethan, love isn't lying. Love isn't letting me plan a wedding while you're still married to another woman. Love isn't threatening me when I find out. Whatever this was, it wasn't love. And I want no part of it." For a second, I thought he might lunge forward. His face twisted with something between rage and heartbreak. But then his groomsmen grabbed his arms, muttering, "Come on, man. This is over." They dragged him down the hall while he shouted my name, his voice echoing until the elevator doors closed. Silence. I sank onto the couch, shaking, Mom's arm around me, Dad pacing like a caged lion. That was my wedding day. Not a walk down the aisle. Not vows. Not rings. Just the sound of a man unraveling at my doorstep while I stood in pajamas, clutching the last pieces of my dignity. In the weeks that followed, I returned the dress. I boxed up the invitations. I blocked Ethan on every platform. Sarah and I spoke once more. She had seen his meltdown online, because apparently someone filmed him being dragged out of my building. She said softly, "You're free now. Don't waste that freedom." And she was right. I'm still healing. The humiliation lingers, whispers from relatives, coworkers, even strangers who saw the video. But the overwhelming feeling isn't shame anymore. It's relief. Because 1 week before the wedding, I thought I was about to start a fairy tale. Instead, I uncovered a nightmare. And as painful as it was, at least I walked away before the nightmare had my name legally attached to it. Now, when I see that empty finger on my hand, I don't feel loss. I feel saved. And sometimes, in the quiet, I whisper to myself what Sarah told me in the cafe: "You still have a chance to walk away." And I did.
Follow me for more stories.